I make a motion to approve the meeting's agenda as published. Second. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving published meeting minutes, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion passes unanimously. Item number 5 on our agenda is approval of our April meeting minutes. If you want to attend our April meeting, please feel free to vote. Otherwise, abstain. Make a motion to approve the April meeting minutes as published. Any discussion? All those in favor of approval of the April meeting, say aye. Aye. Opposed? And abstain. I'm abstaining. If to abstain, Keller and Jason Cole will not attend for the April meeting. Vote on 6, consideration primary variance. One of the Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-judicial board comprised of resident volunteers of the city of Elm. The board is charged hearing requests for variance from the standards of the Clean and appeals of administrative determination. With regard to decisions on primary variance, the board's basis for decisions provide these considerations. A. Relief if granted not defend spirit or intent of the ordinance. B. There are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular abuse property that the letter of application of the ordinance would create unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And C. Relief if granted not cause a substantial detriment to the public goods from properties. And D. That the public safety, health, and welfare are secured, and that substantial justice is done. I'd like to ask staff to please present 21-9 to work for.
We 21-09 to report. It was stated against 6 to allow the law for a cup zone property that runs a public street door from 20% to 25%. The site is a 1.06 acre lot located on the north side of Walkway Drive and west side of Walkway. The property is zoned community unit plan, in short called CUD, or CUP, and is located in rural middle overlays. For Section 64, 1141 D 1B, the lot coverage cannot exceed 20% of the properties that run on public streets. The owner applied for it in January 2021. The proposed lot coverage was over 20%. So the applicant was offered various solutions to reduce impervious area. The applicant was variance to allow lot coverage to exceed 20%. The site plan received with the original and variant application on April 4th issue. It shows the obvious area of 565 square feet. However, it was not included into the total impervious calculation. The city is not engineer that the whole system is required to meet the qualities papers to achieve the proper success. The staff communicated its requirements along with other mitigation factors. The applicant does not want to use the modification this project. Therefore, staff recommended that the proposed impervious area of 23.5% and not 20.67%. On April 9th, the applicant provided an inside plan with an added pool house of 25 by 3. This is the total previous comment to 25%. It is an shown in 60. Details of the house are shown in 60. After the comments, the applicant proposed removing the part of concrete walkway and windows. The revised plan is provided on May 12 and is shown in 60. The owner is adding 49 volts per gate and removing existing 461 square feet of impervious surface. The latest proposed impervious area is 3%, still above permit limit of 8%. Everyone experience mastered. On April 2021, the agreement has following costs. The agreement is working with the staff to reduce impervious area. The agreement is working reducing pool house size. The agreement is outlining existing impervious surface as implemented. Staff Part 1. The intent of ordinance is to limit impervious surface. The house had large had eroded prior to purchase by the area. Although the applicant reduced the scope of this project, the proposed pool and lake considerably increased the lot coverage. The spirit of ordinance will defend if the variance is granted as requested. But there is no extraordinary condition protecting this piece of property that is causing excessive hardship to side shaded property. The applicant is familiar with the local code is not exceptional situation rather condition caused by the variance. But leave credit because of the detriment to the public and disaster because of the increased water. For the put the lot is still 20%. For the lot space is public road. But the public safety health welfare are not and substantial justice matter, allowing substantial addition without any serious mitigation to go with it. Staff is denial of the variance. If BZA approves the variance, staff recommends following conditions. Staff that applicants utilize flows from different with permit areas for the to control the water.
Before we move to questions for staff, can we get a developer phone for staff? It's very choppy. I'm seeing head nods in the audience. So imagine that was an issue. While we're waiting on a microphone for staff, I will note this meeting is recorded, live broadcast as well as available on via Zoom tonight. So I might ask you to show things, and that's to benefit the public who may be watching also has an opportunity to comment during the public comment. Staff has a microphone. Are there any questions for staff? I have one question pertaining to the city engineer's determination that if the flow so some similar mitigation is required underneath previous pavers. Can you comment regarding the city engineer's determination on that mitigation under previous pavers?
So, to get a full credit, the city plan review engineer recommends having the flow wells and under pavers.
Maybe we'll hear more from the applicant, but their concerns with that. So it's not recommendation, the city engineer maintains or requires that a flow well or similar mitigation be in place under previous papers. Okay. Okay. Any other questions for staff?
I just need an updated sheet here. Missing the full third paragraph of the background.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah, that
know.
means a lot.
Is it older? I mean, a newer one. Everybody's
No.
yeah. It's just
So, while the applicant comes forward, if you have any questions, we'll certainly come back to address those. If you please state your name and address for the record.
Yeah, Justin Walton, 200 George Court. And I'm Jason Smith, full contractor for Miracles.
Okay, well, can I fill us in on where we're at? This looks like this has evolved a little bit. So everyone on the same page?
I think I'm just hearing from both of you about the requirements. We didn't know what pervious that flow system was the requirement for the city, so we're happy to find it.
Okay. It does affect the calculations in a pretty significant way.
Yep.
All right. Any additional details that you're?
No.
All right. We'll ask questions. I'm sure we have some. Are there questions for the applicant? Based on the BRB's review and staff comments about trying to take other alternatives to mitigate your overall impact, it seems like you've done some of that. You've eliminated the pool house, I should say. Concrete surface that was there for all court and some of the concrete walkway. It puts you in this 20 to 23% range. It looks like you have a very substantial stone and brick patio at the back of the house. Is it not an option to utilize or reduce that and or utilize that as part of your project to minimize the overall impact?
From what I believe, the brick patio was built with the house on the foundation, so I'm not sure. I haven't had anyone look at it to see if it would be a foundation issue to remove. But the other decking, I can definitely reduce and hopefully, I guess, more pervious pavers.
Well, that would achieve a couple of things if you're able to either reduce or integrate that into the pool. It would not only reduce the amount of impervious overall, it would move the pool closer to your home and have less impact on neighbors and street view.
Yeah, I think the one reason why we would like a pool in the place is as I have a 4-year-old and 2-year-old infant, and coming right outside the door off a brick patio, a foot away from a pool, just is, I think, my wife and I are concerned about safety and would rather have it at least a little bit away if possible.
Okay. Those are my questions for now. Any other questions for the applicant?
well, I guess if you're planning to use the flow well, and that takes you to 22 to 23%, and then you're willing to take down some of the stone or the patio or whatever, is that possible to take you to the 20%?
Well, the house was already at, I think, 20.73 when just by it built. So I don't think I could, unless I started removing the driveway and things of that nature, which I don't know if the HOA would quite enjoy that. So I'm fine with it. I don't know the neighborhood. I don't think that would be appreciative. I started taking away front side up front.
Right, so before the project even started, based on the area calculations in your May 12th Exhibit D, you're at 1968 in impervious against the total square foot of 44,000. So you're right, you're at 20.7 to begin with before we even started this project.
We have, I mean, storm well drain as well on the, I can't put this out, on the wayside side. That's shown for runoff. I don't know if that helps. And it is a slanted lot, or a whole lot slants down to that area where that storm drain is.
So if you can we put the site plan, May 12th, Exhibit D on the screen. And we're not here to solution. We're asking for alternatives, but there be comments as well as our own. And the calculations don't show up at all. So, can you go ahead and point using help us understand some of the orientation and topography here?
So basically, where the pool is now, that's the highest point of the entire lot.
Yep.
And everything's running down
Into there.
this corner right here. From the original plan that we had given, this is a basketball court right now, how we purchased the home, where that is. So what we're going to do is eliminate that, turn it into the pool equipment site. So we're kind of killing two birds with one stone. Because originally on the first, the site, this equipment pad was also added to the pervious. So we're putting that there. We remove part of this sidewalk here. This is that brick patio referring to. It literally goes underneath the house, screen porch. It's all one piece. That we can't really mess with this without changing the entire integrity probably of the house with the foundation. This is the existing flagstone patio area that's built up, and it's literally holding up with a wall, foundational wall here, because this whole area here is probably a change of 10 to 15 feet of elevation. It's all flowing this way. So when they built the house, they did build that for a specific purpose to, mitigate whatever drainage or foundational problems or whatever they did. But it is more or less an integral part of the whole backyard. However, he's willing to demo this and then turn that into pervious pavers and add that to the drywall system. That I'm sure engineering will give us know where to install those. So we really have tried to massage this as best we can. And, at the end of the day, with the pervious and drywall, I mean it's right at 22 and or even below 22%. So at the end of the day, it's maybe 1% over what he's already over. That's not right. But he inherits something that we're just trying to make right as best we can.
So by removing that stone patio, what would it take you to?
Well, the entire stone patio is about 800 square feet, but you can't just remove it. We're going to have to rebuild it with a pervious paver situation, but it would be about 900 square feet, and then we would just back into some pavers or with the drywall.
Do you know what percentage you would be at then?
I don't know that answer. No. Again, it's just,
I think the engineer would have.
yeah, we could get with them and they would let us know.
Well, it's just assuming the stone patio area is 800 to 900 square feet, and that could be converted into pervious. The project itself is noted in the upper right-hand corner at 684 square foot for the pool, and then some various smaller impervious areas for walls and such. So that could have a substantial impact in keeping him at or close to the 0.7 that he's currently at. Along with the other mitigation that you're already committing to, which is removing the basketball court, removing the concrete walkway.
So I think the percentage-wise, it doesn't decrease. It still remains 23, but they're taking care of their runoff by having that system underneath.
Understood. Yeah, well, it's going to be, it's a trade-off is what I'm seeing, if I'm seeing it wrong, but if it converts the existing stone patio to pervious pavers at roughly 800 to 900 square feet and is adding 800 or 900 square feet of pervious pool and walls, then he's staying close to where he's currently at, which is 20.7. Am I misinterpreting? If I am, let me know.
I think if they're going to replace the flagstone with the previous paver, but still, it's the same area, it's going to go into the calculation. So it's still going to be 23%, but they will be taking care of the runoff with the system underneath.
I thought if it was pervious, that it didn't count against you.
That's what we are trying to tell you, that, I mean, this is our city plan review engineer is saying that even if they are pervious pavers, they need to have that system underneath.
Right, and I heard the applicant say that they're fine moving to the pervious with a flow well system,
Right.
For both the pool decking as well as the stone patio. Is that correct? Which would then give them full credit for that as being pervious surface and would not go against their impervious calculations. If they went with pervious pavers and flow well.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
So it would be as though there was grass there. I mean,
Right.
for all intents and purposes.
So would they still need a variance?
Yeah.
For the pool? The pool
Yeah,
portion?
Because we're already over.
That's why we're here.
So you need a variance for the impervious pool.
Right. And the fact that they were
Around
over
it.
to begin with. And they'll be over at the end.
But I thought if they made the existing patio pervious, that would offset the pool.
Are you willing to sit down and do some calculations? Because, I mean,
So
I wish some of this had already been done.
right? The issue at hand here is we can't. We've gone over this ad nauseum. We can't get to the 20% or less because he's adding the pool. I mean, we've literally done the most minimal impact possible, and until the pervious paver situation counted against us, because it's, to be honest with you, this is new. The pervious it's never counted before. So I don't know. That's why we're here discussing it. On top of the being over 20% already, had it counted, we basically would be even Steven, kind of like what we're talking about, and I think it would kind of mitigate the biggest impact here. But we really can't go any lower. We can't get to 20 without.
Yeah, I think I do want to protect the integrity of the front of the house for the neighbors and HOA, like removing, I think, driveway and front, walkway is just.
No, we're not suggesting that. We're not suggesting that.
But we're off the dry well system. I mean, we're completely fine installing the underground water collection systems, whether it's overkill or not. I mean, whatever it's whatever
At
it
this
takes.
point, I will do whatever to make sure everyone walks away happy, right? And
Okay. I did read from comments from the neighbors, there is concerns about screening, given that you are building up against the setback.
correct, yeah.
Have you addressed that in terms of landscape screening or any sort of buffering between you and your neighbor for this project? Not having a pool house certainly helps.
Yeah.
But
we've talked multiple times. As soon as we have a final approved plan, I'm definitely, plant trees, get a landscaper to talk with, what is needed to mitigate sight and noise. on that side of the property.
But I don't know if he's not over the building line.
No,
So we're not really, he's not, I don't think we can enforce that on you. There's nothing wrong there. Your neighbors just don't like the look of it. That's not your fault. So I wouldn't say that's your
There's not
responsibility to
something
do
in
it.
the-
That's correct. We can't enforce that for you to put trees in so your neighbors don't see it.
Your HOA could.
If you were across the building line and you were closer to their property than you should be, then that could be one of the steps for putting in landscaping. But
I would think your HOA might have some requirements for.
but regardless, where I was going is,
Oh.
what is he doing working with the neighbor in terms of mitigation?
Yeah, I mean, I'm again trying to make sure that everyone walks away and.
We may hear more in public comment that we can reflect into this discussion. Any other questions, Haj?
Has this been presented to your homeowners association, or have they given you an approval at all?
The primary plan, this plan has been sent. I don't have approval yet. Because I'm still, I think, waiting to see if we have to make adjustments, et cetera. But they're aware that there is a plan in place of this meeting.
Any other questions?
Either way, do they need to have a variance? I mean, they're at 20.7 at the purchase of the home. So
Yes, they do
they
need
need,
variance.
they need something.
Correct. Correct.
Even if they took it, even if it was equaled out by removing the stone patio, there still needs to be a variance.
Correct. Is that staff's interpretation? In order for them to gain site that is in compliance, they would need a variance.
Yeah.
Even if they did nothing, they're at 20.7.
It all begin with.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
But I think they're making good progress if they agree to do the flow well and to do the permeable, and they don't have a large, they have the pervious pavers around the deck, so.
Right. Okay, so the order of business is, we've asked questions of you, you've shared with us more about your project. I'll open it up for public comment, and then you'll have an opportunity, if you care, to make any closing statement before we then move to our own motion.
Okay.
So you have a seat for a minute. And we'll,
thank you.
Thank you.
from a public comment standpoint, we'll start with those that are in favor, supporting the application. I'd ask you to be brief or have equal 10-minute portions. The applicant's already used a portion of that. And then if there's anyone to speak in favor, in total, we'll have a 10-minute allotment for that as well. Do we have any public comment in favor?
Yes. Mr. Laffin.
Good evening. My name is Steve Leffen. I live at 16675 Quayside Drive, immediately to the left of a neighbor. I'm the neighbor that you're referring to. This project, and I apologize in advance, I'm an engineer, retired UPS engineer, so very familiar with these type of projects. My neighbor has gone through quite a learning curve, very frustrating, and we are trying to be good neighbors with each other. I did have concerns with the pool house as well as the pool equipment being as close to the corner of my property that I use the most. It's where I have my grill and kitchen. He has worked towards getting rid of the pool house, if I understand that, and the pool equipment he has moved to the far side, which I appreciate. We've had some other discussions about some other things which we've worked through. I stand here in favor of the pool, but I do have a couple questions. As far as the landscaping comment, so there's been the removal of some barrier, natural barrier, and the neighbor has agreed in concept if it's okay with the city to put landscaping up to help with the noise and the visual component. These lots are surrounded by woods. My entire lot is surrounded by woods except in this corner now, and he has agreed to work with that, but he doesn't know what the city will let him do or not do. One suggestion I might have is doing a net zero cut and fill. So he has a pool that he's going to dig a big hole in. The lot is very, very steep. And most houses, in fact, all except one in the entire neighborhood, have the pools directly behind the home. He has a side lot configuration. I think something that would help the city with their concerns about flow and drainage, again, it's very steep, with the noise component, the visual component for us, and for a cost component for the neighbor, would be to take what he digs out and berm it and then put landscaping on top of it. And again, he can speak for himself, but he and I have stood on the side, and he agreed to consider that, and he's trying to be a good neighbor. I think that might solve some of these issues, because there really is a pretty steep flow. He does have that drainage inlet right in the corner there. So, yes, the city can't force him to do landscaping because he's outside the 50-foot barrier, but can a neighbor take exception to a variance over the 20%?
Sure.
So what I really want is landscaping, as he and I have consensually agreed to in concept, if it's permissible by the city. So I'm for this project if I get a landscape barrier to kind of shield some of this stuff. I'm not for it if that's not part of it.
Okay, can you, using the site plan?
Yes.
To your left? That's in the,
Oh, I'm sorry.
can you point to where you're located and where your concerns are?
My home
You have to
is,
switch.
There you go.
my home is right, this is where my grill, and I use my home the most, right in this.
So at that back corner is where you're concerned of not, okay.
So it's been opened up a little bit, and he's going to put a play set down a little bit further. Love kids, family man, all that stuff is good. But there is a difference from what it used to be, and trying to maintain the integrity of the spirit of the neighborhood, which is very wooded lots, or very large lots. Mine is 1.4 acres. He's been challenged by the size of his house and the size of his lot. So I don't know that there's any rift here at all, but I'm only in favor of this if there's some landscaping to project it, and I don't know of anybody that's opposed to that right now. Again, the neighbor can speak for himself.
Excuse me, sir, can you clarify where you would want to put the landscaping? You showed where your house was, but can you on the...
So the neighbor is very familiar. We walked it the other day, but it would be wherever naturally it would fit, but in this area to shield from the visual and the noise component, yes. So there's ample opportunity to do that, and again, minimal cost if you take the fill material from the pool, berm it, and put some trees on top.
I don't think we can legally enforce that.
Yeah, I think you might have more luck going through.
The berm isn't going to do anything with the water. That's going to increase the.
Well, some of the berm material could go in the front, and it would reduce the flow rate. Absolutely would reduce the flow rate.
But it's not. It's more than a 6% grade.
Yeah, it's a steep grade.
Right, but so flow wells, the way they work is the water absorption has to be on a flat surface so the water will absorb into the ground. When you create a berm, you're creating basically more of a mudslide. The water's not going to have time to absorb into the ground. It's going to pick up speed when it hits that hill. So a flat grade is what you need, not a hill.
Okay.
So
put the hill to the side. Same concept.
But I don't think one has to do with the other.
I do.
Well, where is your property in elevation compared to the location of the pool in elevation?
The high point of his property is ground level of my property.
Okay,
So I'm above him looking down, if you will.
understood.
Yeah. So again, the point that I agree with this project variance if there's landscape, and I don't if there's not. That's a salient point, right?
Right, no, we understand that. But it doesn't necessarily need to be a berm and buffer. It could just be a landscape buffer.
A buffer that does something, yes.
Provides you visual and noise
Yes.
Mitigation.
And in the last discussion the neighbor and I had, he agreed if the city allows for that, doesn't sound like you care whether he does it or not. If the city allows for that, he's agreed to meet with me and work something out together.
Understood.
But the concern that I have as an engineer is if it's not on drawings, it's not the project. So I'm concerned about that.
Understood.
The other concern I have is the other neighbor behind him and to the right-hand side of me, back behind his pool, had to do blasting for rock just for their home construction. That had some bad effects. Actually, the neighbor's foundation had some cracks before they moved out that the neighbor fixed, and we've had some issues too, so I'm very concerned about blasting. I don't know where the codes are and all that, but if there's any way we can, and he's got a great gate with a great yard right up to get a big hole in there, mechanically remove it, but I'm very concerned about blasting there. It's real close to his house, it's real close to his neighbor's house, it's real close to me.
Okay, good points. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any additional public comment in favor?
No. No.
And how about online? On Zoom?
No, no.
Okay. Is there any public comment in opposition to this application?
No.
And none online?
No.
Okay. Before I ask the applicant to come forward with, there any closing comments, is there any restrictions or what restrictions, protections might there be for this comment that was raised regarding blasting during the construction of whether it be a residence or a pool? Is that limited?
Other than the noise.
We
but,
have noise ordinance.
we'd have to check on that about the blasting. I do know that in the past, when developers come in to do a full development and they do blasting, they'll talk to the fire marshal and other people. But as far as individual lots, I'd have to check on that.
Yeah, so the noise isn't the concern, it's the repercussions to other properties, whether it be their foundations or windows or what have you.
Right, correct.
And I want to make clear, is there any restrictions to that in the case of constructing a pool?
I would have to check with the building department. I can't answer that.
And do we know if they're going to be blasting?
I was going to ask the applicant that,
Oh.
so I figured I'd give them some time to think.
Can you address the landscaping request?
And the berm, yeah. I mean, we don't have anything exactly in the code to say no berming, but we highly discourage berms to be created, especially with landscaping. I think your point was well taken that we would encourage them to plant material that would grow quickly without a berm and to help stabilize it instead of increasing that potential for runoff off the berm. So.
Well, I guess what I'm saying is too is you're setting the precedence for neighbors to be able to dictate to their neighbor. This time it's landscaping.
Yeah.
Maybe next time the neighbor wants something else. You know what I'm saying? There's
if-
no requirement there. So
There's
for us
no
to enforce it,
requirement. It would have to be as they've been discussing, an agreement between the two of them.
Well, we still have the ability
Well,
to
I
make
know,
it a
we can
condition.
do that, but
I mean, if we hear enough concerns, we have 4 considerations, and if we're concerned about the impact of surrounding properties, then we could condition some mitigation. But we don't have to.
True, but if he were to say, okay, I'll lose my pool deck, he doesn't need a variance. He could put his pool in and not have to do any landscaping.
You understood.
So
He didn't need a variance. But in the case of needing
Well, I'm
a
saying if
variance,
he were to, correct. So basically what he's applying for is a variance to put in a pool deck or put in, because he can get below his percentage if he takes out his sport court and gets rid of his pool deck. But he's wanting it all, and I don't blame him. But my point is, the pool is not in, it's not in violation, or it's not needing a variance. So he could put that pool right there without having to put that landscaping in if he didn't need a variance for his pool deck.
correct, but the fact is he needs a variance, and
Well,
therefore we can condition if we feel there's legitimate concerns.
Yeah.
But we're not obligated to, and the city doesn't need to mandate it
No, I
either.
get it. I just wonder if we're setting a precedence for.
I'd ask the city attorney to weigh in on that.
I think maybe that you're both right. I don't know that setting a precedent of establishing conditions on approval of a variance would be any sort of precedent we'd be concerned about. It would be applied to each situation for whichever variance is requested and whatever the surrounding situation for that particular property may be, whether in order to ameliorate the negative impact of granting the variance, you impose conditions. So if they need a variance to get the pool, you can impose conditions to ameliorate that negative impact of allowing the pool to go forward. If they don't need the variance, then obviously you wouldn't be in a position to impose those conditions. The city wouldn't impose them if if a variance weren't required. In this case, I understand they're already over the 20% limit. So in order to make whatever changes they're doing at the moment, based on their plans, they need the variance. In that case, this board could impose conditions if they felt that it was causing an impact on a neighbor and they wanted to ameliorate that impact.
We've done that, not that this is precedent, but we've done mitigation of that nature for accessory structures that are, close to property lines, providing a screening from the road, et cetera.
And I know we have, but that's usually when they're encroaching. This is not encroaching. I think that's your point.
Exactly, yeah.
This is a totally different variance. It's about runoff, so now we're making another condition that really doesn't have to do with the original nature of the variance request. And, so I understand both points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the city attorney summarized it well. So thank you for that.
And I think we're also looking at number 3. The consideration of relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And that's where we're trying to help or assist with that by, requiring some sort of screening.
Or at least hearing the neighbor's concern for
Yes. Yeah.
and plea for that. Okay. With that, I'd ask the applicant, sure, I think we've
One thing, though, I need to add. I didn't want to go there, but
yes. And please make it brief.
I will, but this is very relevant. So longleaf pine trees larger than
I was going to address all that.
12 inches were cut down in the spot that I'm talking about.
We're briefed on that, and I was going to address that with the applicant as well.
Okay, so that's part of why this landscaping is relevant. I didn't want to go there, but there were...
I'm going there.
Okay.
So as you come forward, it was noted that there's been some tree clearing, I think in the area that's of concern. And I also read from the packet that there was at least assertions, and I'd like your perspective on this, of placement of a play set in that 50-foot setback area. The drawing is still there.
Yeah, the drawing is.
Can you speak to both of those points, the tree clearing and the location of that, as well as the potential for a play set and where that might be located?
Yes. This map is.
It'll switch.
Okay. Going at that.
There you go.
Okay. So on this side of the property over here, there were 2 pine trees that we had removed them, wanted to put a place set in for our children, and removed to put the place set right in this area here. We have trees here. But it was approved. We didn't know if we needed permitting or anything like that. That's about as far as we've gone. We haven't put in a set or anything like that.
So that's the extent of the tree removal, was 2 trees?
2 pines, yeah.
Okay. Was there anything disturbed or removed at the rear corner of your property?
Yeah, nothing.
Okay.
Nothing since we've bought the property.
And would staff care to comment regarding the placement of accessory structure, or a play set rather?
I'm not saying it doesn't happen because people don't ask, but if you're asking, play sets and those type of structures need to be outside of that 50-foot, in your case, needs to be outside that 50-foot setback. Oh, so, yes.
So that would not be an approved location for a playset according to the city ordinance.
Understood now.
And I'm bringing this up because I didn't want you to run into more problems. I understand you're new to the area.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and
I'm not here to chastise you, I'm just informing.
I'm learning a lot. I appreciate it.
Yes, and I'm sure what brought you to Milton was our charm and character, and we're trying to preserve that, okay? So we're not trying to be mean.
I totally understand.
And in a community, a CUP development like yours, it's especially important because the buffers are different. The side yard buffers are closer than in most cases. So thank you for elaborating on that, staff. And thank you for sharing what has been done and what your intent was with removing those trees and the play set. The floor is yours. We've taken some time to discuss some of these items so that you had the benefit of thinking through the blasting comment that was made, the screening comments that we talked about it extensively. Be interested in your final points on that.
Yeah, I think this has been a learning process, before purchasing the house, knowing sort of what we wanted to do, and then, coming across this and understanding as I've been going through and working with everyone who's been great, I really am just trying to walk away with, how can, my family, get a pool for our kids to play in and a house we think we could live in for a really long time, and everyone be okay with the way we went about do that, including, all the neighbors on every side in the city. And that's my intent.
And in terms of the screening request for noise and view from the neighbor, what's your position or sentiment on that?
In that corner that he pointed out, there is heavy foliage. And like I told him, if I have to plant a couple of trees there to add to that, I'm happy to do so within, I think, reason, right? I think, he has wide open space as well. He's told me he's purchased some trees too. So, I think both of us together can, come to an agreement there.
Okay.
Yeah, have you, are you aware of the cost of these flow wells? It may be worth, they're not inexpensive. So just putting so many steps on this thing that it outweighs the value by putting in landscaping berms and flow wells and all that stuff to where it just becomes not feasible anymore. It's kind of what I was trying to.
Well, I think our only option then is to sell the house and move somewhere else. My wife wants a pool.
Yeah, no,
we understand that.
So, unless you want me not to be a resident anymore, then that is what will happen.
No, I'm very well. Yeah, I would be in your favor to give you the variance with the flow well. I just didn't know if you had checked into those yet.
I built them several times for Cobb County and a few other counties. Now, we would need to get with, stormwater engineering and whomever so they can calculate how many we need. Typically in a situation like this, it's 2 to 3 to 4 max that are 45 or 55 gallon drums that are buried under the ground with a rock base, and they just flow well out. That's kind of what they are. So, I've given him kind of an estimate of where we're at in ballpark, and he said he's fine with it, but we will need to get with engineering and they'll be the ones to tell us whether it's 3 or 4 or 5. But from my experience from the past, I'm guesstimating that it's going to be 3 to 5 based on the ground clearance here.
And you've guesstimated an estimate for your...
Yeah, but he's obviously, this man here, he just wants to do what he has to do to satisfy the city.
At this point, I think, what the cost is the cost. And
All right, well, we're not going to be unreasonable with you either. I think
That
wanted
was-
him to be informed.
That was my point. Yeah, I didn't want to put so many steps on this thing that it becomes, well, now it's not worth it. We've got to spend X amount before we can even start the pool.
I understand.
Okay, any other final points? And then we will move into taking a motion once you're done. You're good?
Are we going to ask
Any
about
final
blasting?
questions? Sure.
Yeah.
For the blasting situation, I built 600 plus pools in my lifetime. We've blasted up in North Georgia mountains, and not blasting. I've hit the hardest rock you can imagine. And there's other ways to go about it. So blasting would not even be an option. We would use hoe rams, heavy machinery. He's got plenty of access to get in to use that machinery if it even happened. But again, that would be a reactive situation, but it would certainly not be blasting on a site that small. It just wouldn't, and we're not even going that deep. And we're building into a slope, so probably 30% of the entire pool is already going to be excavated because of the way the slope of the yard is. So I don't anticipate it, but if it happens, again, we would use a hoe ram or a commercial grade jackhammer type situation. I would never blast.
And for the record, he said if he does blast, that he's going to buy my pool. So the pool is free of charge to me.
It is on the record.
Yeah, I do have that on the record.
Okay. Any other questions for the applicant or staff? Okay, you can have a seat.
Thank you.
I'll open the floor for a motion and a second.
I'll make a motion to approve variance V21-09, 200 Tor Court, based on the site plan dated April 4th,
Well, the last one is May 12.
May 12th, oh, excuse me.
But don't you want to have those pervious pavers at the...
Well, I was gonna set conditions. With the condition that you remove your sport court and install pervious pavers there and install the flow wells based off the calculations that the city engineer requires.
What about the stone patio?
Converting that to pervious.
Converting that to pervious. Yeah.
I'm reading, so.
Yeah, I'm just doing the calculations. Yeah, converting the stone patio to pervious pavers as well.
With flow well or similar mitigation?
Well, that would be up to the city engineer, right? So just with the condition that the city engineer sizes the flow wells based off the calculations.
I'm writing, so. Is there a second?
Second.
So I've got to, motion to approve based on the site plan received May 12th, 2021 by we have a name? Premier Pools, sorry, thank you. To convert the existing stone patio to pervious pavers with flow well or similar mitigation, remove the sport court, pool deck with pervious pavers with flow well or similar mitigation, flow well or similar mitigation size and quantity according to city engineer. I would add one additional. I'd like to add an amendment to request the removal of the concrete walkway, which was already offered.
Mm-hmm.
That was the 113 square feet that's on the map.
So the applicant offered in their calculations to remove the sport court and remove the concrete walkway. I'm just adding the concrete walkway for removal as an amendment.
Second.
So I'm going to restate. Approval per the site plan received May 12, 2021 by Premier Pools. Convert existing stone patio to pervious pavers with flow well or similar mitigation. Remove the sport court. Pool deck with pervious pavers with flow well or similar mitigation. Flow well or similar mitigation size and quantity according to the city engineer. And an amendment, which we'll vote on first, for the removal of the concrete walkway. Jason, I sufficiently captured?
Yeah, I think so. And plus if it's, yes.
Okay. Is there discussion as we have this motion and a second? Let's first discuss the concrete removal of the concrete walkway. That was offered as part of their calculations and mitigation was to remove that, and they're looking to put in, look like
Steppers.
Steppers, thank
Well,
you.
what I was going to say is it's all on their site plan. So all the calculations are on there, and they show that on the site plan to remove it.
Good point.
So as long as they stick to this, it shouldn't.
Yeah, that's fair. Their calculations are on there regarding that. Out of an abundance of caution, it's there.
The only thing you didn't address is landscaping.
It wasn't addressed in the motion.
Yeah.
In terms of, so before we vote on these, we have 4 considerations. The spirit and intent, the topography and the site conditions, impacts to the neighbors, and public safety, health, and welfare. And I think as we've talked through with the applicant tonight, and they've offered some mitigation on their own, and we've added some additional with the pervious pavers and the flow wells. We're falling within the spirit and intent of the overall percentage. I am entrusting that neighbors will be neighborly in terms of the mitigation regarding view and noise. But otherwise, I think he's got a tricky site to do what he's doing, and he's offering to change some of his existing site in order to accommodate this. Change it in a positive way for mitigation. So regarding the amendment of removal of the concrete walkway, I'll raise that for a vote first. So all those in favor of the amendment to add the removal of the concrete walkway, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. That motion passed unanimous. So now on the overall motion to approve with conditions, and I'm not going to reread those conditions. All those in favor of approval with conditions, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, say nay. Motion passed unanimous. Congratulations on your project. Please work with staff going forward. It'll save you a lot of headaches. And good luck. Welcome to Milton. Okay, the next item on our agenda is V21-10-12655 Birmingham Highway. Staff, please present.
V21-12655 Birmingham Highway. Requested variances are to allow all wall signs to be made of transparent white Lexan and vinyl, to allow internal illumination of all signs, to allow the 48-inch diameter sign to remain on the architectural feature, and to allow an additional wall sign for a total of 4 signs. Now, before I go forward, I want to pull a document here for you. This is a code sign ordinance for Apple Form-Based Code District. And I also printed and added to your packet. It's the last document, and if you turn this to second page, you will see highlighted section. So this is what the ordinance says for the wall signs. Wall signs shall not have changeable copy. Did you guys find it? Yep. Okay. If illuminated, wall signs shall be externally illuminated and directed downward. Wall signs shall not cover architectural features or details and not extend beyond the roof line. Wall signs can hang from the building. Wall signs faces shall be made out of wood or other material which has the appearance of carved, distressed, or sandblasted wood, as approved by the director. A business may have one wall sign. The sign can be flushed against the wall or it can be hung from the building. The size shall not exceed 3% of the applicable wall. The area of the door and spandrel glass panel are excluded from the calculations of the applicable sign area. Single-tenant buildings and the end units of multi-tenant buildings may have an additional wall sign. Businesses whose primary entrance faces an interior parking lot or courtyard may have an additional wall sign. The maximum size for either of these signs shall not exceed 3% of the applicable wall area. And the last one is the business may have an additional sign perpendicular to the wall with a maximum sign area size of 4 square feet. So, the site here is a 3.8 acre lot located on the east side of a Birmingham highway. This property is zone T5 transit zone of Crabapple Form-Based Code. The sign ordinance for the Crabapple Form-Based Code district is applicable for this property. Per section 64-2325 B4, wall sign faces shall be made. Oh, I think I read this. I just read this, right? Over there. Okay.
Yes, you don't have to repeat that.
Okay, I don't have to read this again. So the applicant is occupying an, okay, hold on. Okay, the applicant is occupying an end unit of the multi-tenant building in the Crabapple Market development. Nevertheless, it is the only shop on the first floor of this building, and the first floor is built lower than the street level. The applicant is proposing 4 signs. 2 of them are 30-inch diameter signs on the 2 sides of the building. One of the 30-inch sign is facing Birmingham Highway, and the second one is facing the interior parking lot. The third sign of 48-inch diameter is posted on the door facing the courtyard that is accessible from Birmingham Highway sidewalk as well as the interior parking lot. Pictures of these signs from the various roads are shown in Exhibit B. All of the signs are made of Lexan or vinyl with the Starbucks logo printed on it. The signs have built-in LED illumination which is currently turned off. The applicant would need the requested 4 variances to use these signs. The building elevations with the signs are shown in Exhibit A. On May 4, 2021, the DRB met and had following comments. The DRB recommends approval of the variance for the material and the number of signs. The DRB recommends approval of the variance for a sign on the architectural feature of the building. The DRB recommends external illumination for the signs. Staff response. Oh, hold on. So the standards for consideration are different. So let me read those. The approval of the variance for the signs is based on the following considerations. Relief to this article may only be granted where existing foliage or structure bring about a hardship whereby a sign meeting the maximum letter size, square footage, and height requirement cannot be read from an adjoining road, or the application of the particular provision of this zoning ordinance to a particular piece of property due to extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to that property because of its size, shape, or topography would create an unnecessary hardship for the owner while causing no detriment to the public good. So the staff response is for the request 1, the proposed sign, although not made of wood, does not cause detriment to the public good. The overall sizes of the signs are smaller and the colors are complementary to the character of the Crabapple Form-Based Code District. Also noteworthy is that the owner has chosen the trademark logo instead of large letters for the sign. Therefore, the signs made of Lexan and vinyl may be allowed. For request number 2, in the Crabapple Form-Based Code District, only the external illumination directed downward is allowed for wall signs. There is no hardship arranging the external lighting. There are no exceptional conditions that require internal lighting since the shop is operating between 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. daily. Therefore, it would offend the ordinance if internal illumination were allowed. For request number 3, the code prohibits covering an architectural feature with sign. The applicant has a 48-inch diameter sign posted on the architectural feature of the building. However, this is the only sign that has good visibility for drivers arriving from Crabapple Road. View number 3 and 4 in Exhibit B shows the visibility of this sign from the roundabout. The store is below the street level. There is a limited visibility available for the storefront. Due to this exceptional condition pertaining to this property, the sign on the architectural feature may be allowed. For request number 4, the applicant is requesting an additional sign that is installed above the door. This is a smaller 24-inch diameter sign facing the courtyard. Also, it is an extra sign on the same side of 48-inch diameter sign. People in the courtyard may not see the large sign, but they could easily see the Starbucks facade. There is no extraordinary hardship that demands this sign, therefore an additional wall sign may not be allowed. Staff recommendation. Staff recommends approval of the variance to allow the wall signs to be made of transparent white and Lexan and vinyl. Staff recommends denial of the variance to allow internal illumination of all signs. Staff recommends approval of variance to allow 48-inch diameter sign to remain on the architectural feature. Staff recommends denial of variance to allow an additional wall sign for a total of 4 signs.
Okay, I'm going to make a recommendation as we talk through these. This is a 4-part variance. So where they're bulletized, let's reference part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4 as we discuss, as well as in our motion. We probably need to break it into those 4 for clarity. Are there any questions for staff? Thank you for providing the form-based code sign ordinance for Crabapple. If there's no questions for staff, there is? Okay.
Do we have a formal sign plan for this development from the developer?
You mean master sign?
Or master?
No,
Yeah.
they don't have that.
This looks to be the first tenant in this building.
It was the first to open.
Yeah.
There's a couple other ones that are.
It's the first one to open, the first one to have a sign.
Right. Yeah. First come, first served.
Yeah.
Isn't there so many square feet that can be allowed for the building? And based on the square footage of the space, is how big the sign is allowed to be, would they be taking somebody else's space that's not in the, would they be taking somebody else's sign space if
So
we were to
they're-
give them more? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so they are allowed 3% of the applicable wall area.
So it's not just a percent, it's not just a certain amount of square feet for the entire building, and they all have to share based on the square footage. So my question would be, if we gave them more square footage, would somebody else in the building be having to sacrifice some of their?
They are okay as for their square footage and the size of the signs. They do not violate any of the code.
Just the number.
Right.
Can,
The
on your
number of signs.
pictures?
They're not, to answer your question, they're not taking
Okay.
signage space away from future
they don't-
tenants.
Got it, yeah.
On your pictures, do your pictures relate to the 1, 2, 3, and 4? So like on page 8, is that the number 1 variance or?
No.
No, those are just the street views.
So can you tell me which pictures are you saying you want to deny?
Okay, so if you look at view number 2, page 9,
Yep.
there is a small 24-inch diameter sign on the door, above the door. That's a small sign in the courtyard. The door opens in the courtyard, and it's staff's opinion that that is an extra sign that they wouldn't need.
So the one in the courtyard you're saying should be denied.
Mm-hmm.
It's an excess.
Yeah.
And which other one did you want to deny?
So the other one was about the internal illumination. That means they are all LED signs, and we do not allow LED lighted signs in Crabapple Form-Based Code District. Yeah, in internally illuminated signs or LED signs. We can allow them to have lighting on the signs facing downwards, but right now they are designed with LED lighting inside the sign.
So all of these signs.
All of them have LED, but they are turned off right now.
Thank you. That helps clarify it for me. I appreciate it.
Okay, would the applicant please come forward, state your name and address for the record?
My name is Brian Simmons. I live at 615 Doris Road.
All right, what do you want? If help us in those 4 parts, can understand where you're at on this.
Yeah, we when we were originally designing the space, we had the architect, the building developer, and the Starbucks design group all coordinate, come up with the sign plan. It was our understanding when we approved everything that what did meet code at the time. When they were built, they were shipped off to warehousing until the permit was received. We did get an initial approval of the signs, brought them out of warehousing, installed them. After they were put up, we were notified that they didn't meet the code and were requested to apply for a variance at that point. When we designed everything at the Starbucks, we wanted it to be discreet but noticeable. One of the challenges of a lot of the restaurants and businesses in the area is just the noticeability of that, and wanted to really make sure that it was people were aware that we were there, and to enable us to have enough traffic to the store. We believe that the material, and I think with the staff's recommendation, that the material doesn't really stand out against everything else. Having the lighting to us, I think it would be a pretty difficult thing at this point with the building constructed and the cost to go through the process of putting in goosenecks and having goosenecks light up a vinyl sign. I think just probably would not get the result that we want. We do think that it actually looks pretty nice at the building when it was lit up at that point in time. So, we would, respectfully request that we allow to continue to light up those signs as they were designed. For the additional sign, so when we originally were designing this, we were going to have 3 signs, but then the original layout of the building was that it was going to be street level. It then went down below street level when they actually finalized their plans. And so at that point, we wanted to have the additional small sign above the door for people sitting in the courtyard that they'd have visibility to the brand name. And when you look from the street driving in, it's enough underneath the decking that it doesn't really, in our opinion, doesn't really come across as you've got kind of 2 signs in your face. So the goal was to be able to just have something that, eliminated that brand to the customers that were sitting in the patio.
And you said you were originally given approval for these signs
Yes, ma'am.
by the city of Milton?
Yes, ma'am.
So you also mentioned that the engineer, your architect, and Starbucks engineers came up with a signage plan based on our ordinance. And the signage plan that we have is dated from August 31st, 2020. Is that the time frame when?
They would have been designing probably a little bit earlier than that. It probably would have been in the May timeframe of 2020.
Okay. What were they designing off of? Because our ordinance is very clear.
I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. I wish I had a better answer than I don't know what they were using.
You live on Doris Road, so you live in Milton.
Yes.
So you're pretty familiar with crabapple, I imagine.
Yes.
Did it not look out of kilter to you that this sign was going to be, this material and internally lit, and when nothing else in crabapple is?
Honestly, it never really dawned on me, driving through crabapple that wasn't there. So it never really stood out. I never really looked at it and like, okay, well, this is vinyl, and therefore it can't. Church has a lit up sign and stuff. So it never really dawned on me that was, part of the design elements within the city. So you have restaurants that have, LED kind of neon signs in their windows, in some part to get around, I think, some of the existing code, where they try to get attention to draw people to let them know that, hey, we're open, we're here. We'd like to avoid doing anything like that where we've got LED signs. I don't like that look in that field.
Yeah, that's not encouraged. I think part of why you didn't maybe notice crabapple is because it's by design. The design plan here is to fit in with the charm and character of this area. I've sat on the comprehensive plan for the last 7 months, and signage is a big topic. In fact, crabapple is a model that the comprehensive plan is looking at moving to other form-based code and other master plan areas across Milton. Mm-hmm. And it's because of that charm and character. And the ordinance, again, is very clear. So whether it was, their oversight or your oversight, it's a big oversight.
Yes.
And then not only in material, but then in having the illumination is just very inconsistent with all crabapple, which is by design different than, let's say, Deerfield, which is much more commercially intensive than this form-based code area was intended to be.
Right.
It seems like there were some missteps both from your side and even from staff, approving and then not approving, realizing that there was an error. It's unfortunate. No one wants missteps. And as a small business owner, you definitely don't want them because that means money.
Right.
I understand.
You've been open for a while just curious if you've had any issue with visibility or if
We-
suffering because of it.
We opened March 1st. We still have people that come in that didn't know we were there. I don't know if that's a signage issue or what. I think it's hard to determine right now whether or not that is probably any challenges. The daylight hours right now make it such that having lit up signs isn't as big of an impact. I think as we get into the winter time, that will become more of an issue, that we wouldn't have lighting on the signs, or if we had to install goosenecks, just the cost of that and rerunning all the electrical, just would be a pretty financial burden to do at this point. But it's hard to say whether or not that has an impact. We're not where we're going to be in terms of our foot traffic and where we would be, but I can't really say whether or not that's driven by signage or not.
Don't you think, I have to agree with Todd that the internal sign is a pretty big deal to approve. That set them precedent for everybody else. And you're right next to residents that want to have neon lights put there through their windows. Don't you think if the building gets developed and the street lights and all that, lights on and stuff like that, I mean, you're going to shine like a beacon on that corner in the winter hours, just with your internal lights on, just inside your,
Although it's just below the street level.
Yeah, I agree. But,
I think there's a lot of visibility other than signage. If someone's just driving by and knowing what it is. I mean, otherwise it's just a space.
Yeah. Is that outdoor seating lit?
There is lighting up pretty high. We have had a really chance of suddenly park to really turn that on. They're pretty small lights, so I don't think that would impact.
You're going to have advantage in some ways because you're an end unit and that you are allowed 3 signs, one on each face. Whereas the tenant next to you is only going to get one on Birmingham Highway and one on parking lot, right? And so on and so on down the line.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe with the facing the school. The tenant next to us is also.
Is that one unit? So it's two halves.
Correct.
Okay. Fair point, though. That's and they would also be entitled to have, they would have one facing north on Birmingham Highway. Okay. The threshold that we have got to get through in terms of our criteria is part one. Is there something that's obstructing the existing toilet or structures which that doesn't apply here? And part two is there's particular provision in the zoning ordinance that to a particular piece of their property that's in this extraordinary exception about it that would cause us to overturn ordinance in your case. But there's a pretty big hurdles in terms of signage.
I would say that the trees that were planted by the developer as opposed to also it will reduce visibility to the building.
Remember, Patel brought up about a master sign plan for that complex. Have you had any conversation with the landlord regarding a master signage plan for that building?
The only thing,
building?
Yeah, I'm not aware of any sign plan. We were really going through negotiating the lease and going through their plans for the space. They had renderings that had, light signs on the corner of the building, things like that that were lit up. I think there was some confusion that we thought that was generally what was going to be done there. We didn't want any in your face, we want it more discreet, and that's conventional. But I don't know if that came master sign plan, or if that was just kind of what they hoped it would look like.
Well, if you don't know, that was more hope than reality.
Yeah.
I mean, not to make light of it, I mean, if you're making an investment decision based on a design concept, unfortunately, the design concept doesn't jive with the ordinance. Blades, and, you know that now. You don't realize that. Okay. Any additional questions for applicants or staff? In order for business almost public comment. So if you propose an amendment for them into a motion regarding your case. So, are there any questions? Yeah. I see there's a comment.
Yes. Brock.
Please state your name and address for further. Thank you. Oh, wait, let me just clarify. Should have done this. You're getting your answer. At least you consume a lot of time for the applicant of the minutes in their favor. We provide equal amount of time for the opposition. Are you speaking in favor or not? Opposition. Okay, is there anyone speaking in favor? No. Is there anyone online speaking in favor? Okay, so we have 10 minutes. So there's volunteers to speak against to speak.
Okay. My name is my wife Mary, I live at 600 Big Lane, we're in Birmingham area. And I will be brief because something's already been stolen by you guys. Like we started saying, again, really well done in Milton. And we don't like this. Somebody's done in the past. And like you said, those stone, brick, wood, or fake material, like that. And what you've got now isn't a 1% variance. This is total. Throw this out. What we have already, what we've been pursuing, and trying to keep. And what we have is room to rest down around here. It's not perfect. We need it to work. If we let this happen here, in this way, how do you keep only there on that corner and not able to just how do I keep this happening in Birmingham ways? That's what I would consider. This is a useless man here. It's going to impact the city. One thing I'm saying specific to this is probably the most recognizable logo in the country right now is the mermaid. You can see a small mermaid half a mile away and follow that to it. This is out there around with people sitting down and as they go by. They have plenty of time to see a sign that is appropriate to the sign plan. Starbucks. I don't see a need to have a limited sign up on the hill in the distance for people to navigate with. I think the signs you're going to have with the recognizable mermaid, I can't see why there's not going to be plenty of advertising for that store. All you get most of it, it's really the same. It doesn't matter what time. You can find it again. I'm going to prove that. The other thing I was saying is this first store open up there. We have no idea what this whole on that hill. In that roundabout. All you have to get every storefront. And those two buildings that are terminal signs. Plastic signs. So, the other thing I'll just say, let's take what we've done in the past. What have done well in the past. What we have here. And nothing I've heard in the see that process anymore else. If ever I say, gosh, which would like family. Let's go. Start. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any additional public comment?
No.
Yes, applicant. Do you have opportunity to close the comment?
Yeah, I would just, first ask for consideration as opposed challenges we face with approval of the permit and really that a chance to that might have been brought in the storage and the cost to change that would be pretty significant cost, and maybe we all want to have restaurant and retail amenities are available and some challenges are just, I appreciate the sign, throw this on in place, so this county, some of the resources just have those willing to our restaurant business in the city, and they a lot of times it's just see this and all your customer base is just kind of how it works. Maybe for the answer question.
Are there any final questions for the applicant for staff?
One question. The sign that is, you're saying, is not actually of the building. Is that on this page? This bill?
Yes, it's south and taken from the that's the 40-inch sign that's on the railing of the okay, any additional questions? I'll make it the public comment exposed and eligible for a motion and second. Let's make a motion. I'm going to try to keep organized. Make a motion to approve part 1 only for the interior line part 1. Deny part 2, which would language only. Deny part 3, which would deny the sign every feature. And deny part 4 on the additional sign. And make additional note. The remaining streets and parking lot facing signs not using directions design. There are proportions there. For the sign man. Be 81. 20 by that page proceed forward. So, the sign ordinance thresholds, I stated earlier, sure. Private ordinance, strict by design. Well, I understand very well. Financial hardship involved here. What you want to do? Electrical, other things. That's part of the markings. And all the time is just part of the term of travel. Making provision in part 1 allow for the what makes in the sign. Interior parking lot. I feel that's interior of the ordinance. In the sense that's not the other function having an architecture feature. And I think visual science is sense. It's not going to be code by design. Everything. Discuss that don't choose even the there. It's what you got. You can use that. Or case one is coming out. It's good. Now it's okay. Right. No, it's already over there. I'll just have. That's what I'm doing. Or the like. Okay, that. So I can't see it. Do it in the bottom side. On city. Yes, but rules and regulations. You can't expect others to be more confident in those who are supposed to enforcing the rules. I mean, that's the heart of the law. It's not financial burden. Using certain things we're trying to like a concept. Imagine it's for manufacturers when they see the commit. And so this response usually applies to some company will come with a submit an application with a certain type of size material. Get the approval from the city, and then have a manufacturer. If they find there's issue any variance, so they would come to the board, ask for a variance, and then before they proceed, these manufacturers sign. That's a nice point of clarification. They're very much that same, and it doesn't really have a true, but they're not really a great area. And it's like absolutely nice to so because of staff response, I mean, we do look at that. And for request number one, although it's not made wood, does not cause detriment to public good. All sizes are smaller, color complementary. The owner shows the trademark logos in large letters. Therefore, the sign type left on or permanently allowed.
So I'm just trying to get clarification on staff's response.
I read that as
That's, yeah.
that's how I'm interpreting it. I mean, as I said, my understanding of the ordinance in that area is that it would be to the limit. It does create an external can work or that being the first in a multi-building facility.
And we're not
So that's the one, that's what we want. And that's what we want.
The issue always says, boards have precedent. Each variance request is independent, and, you know, one does have precedent.
Yeah, I think that's, I think it's the building. Including architectural features. You might mention the visual color of that. Is second floor builds in, the floor builds in, and the adjacent does the same.
If they're available.
A lot of the architectural features would or not.
It's not now. You're not doing that.
I'll give this time to get through discussion so that we can reach a normal vote.
They are saying that's a hardship too, for the architectural feature. You know, putting a sign on the architectural feature, that's the only place when you come into that roundabout where they can put something to be able to be seen. And you know, when he first Joe in that space, he was told there's the ground, and then they dropped it. So that was one reason also that the staff recommended approval of the architectural, the sign being on the architectural feature.
Yeah, I guess I'm saying I disagree with staff.
Okay.
We'll have it.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And technically, there's two signs on that side.
right, that's the full sign.
Well, they're not on the front. So not
The one was right.
one. There's a tunnel right over the architectural.
And there was the door. That's the door.
Oh, yeah. Well, that, yeah, I'm not worried about that. I'm just talking about our architectural sign. We could take deny one of the door.
And the line of the door and the courtyard. That's one you want to deny.
No, the one that's on the architectural feature, the large one.
Or so is, just so I understand. Page 10. Yeah, that doesn't do it. Give me page 10. You're talking about that sign?
Page 10, yes.
The lowest picture?
Yes.
That's the one you want to deny.
Yes.
Both pictures at the same time. They're looking the same. I'm just going closer and taking another.
Where do you put a sign?
Yeah, it's going into that roundabout.
Where none of what it says.
Well, it looks like to me that there's a building on that corner.
Where I mean, there's no
That's
notice.
the architectural feature.
And on the brick, little column?
But it was an vision from to have on that banister on that railing. So, as an we're not here to solve, a solution, I should say. I do believe there's alternatives to get visibility from that direction.
I know we're not trying to solve anything, but in my mind, I watched the video that we were sent, and as you drive up, you can see a sign. Without that being there, I don't see another place where they could have a sign that they meet. I mean, you put it on the other side of the building.
We can, so these buildings here have a lot of signs that stick out from the building.
And so that's the suggestion.
Well, we'll be able to take up
Possibly.
Well, but like, I mean, take out, like, for the second, third floor here, on these buildings here. You're on the main Crabapple Road. The signs are,
Yeah.
with, you know,
So something in the corner of that building.
yeah,
Would give them visibility from the roundabout.
Like vertical, horizontal,
Mhm.
vertical.
yeah. Which, but I get, it's their logo, I get that, but that's not the city.
It can only be 30 inches in diameter.
They have,
I thought the sign for-
the remain signs. The remaining signs shall be, as they've been designed, at 30 inches facing the road, facing the parking lot, and 24 inches at the doorway. They choose to do away with one doorway, and they go with a different sign on that face, and they do that. We're not stopping them from doing that. But putting it on the architectural feature of that material and having it internally lit off the door. A problem. In my view. Are we ready to take a vote on this? We take real quick for everyone's understanding. Part one would be to allow wall sign to be made of transparent white black sign and vinyl only for the interior sign to the parking lot. Part two would be denied. Part three, denied. Part four, denied. And a conditional note, the remaining street and parking lot signs not to exceed 30 inches in diameter and 24 inches in diameter. Per the sign plan, dated April 1, 2020. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay.
Nay.
Motion passed 4-2. Okay. We appreciate we give these things a lot of thought. These decisions don't come lightly. Next item on our agenda this evening is a consideration of appeal to secondary variances. Kevin? Item number 8 is old business. Is there any old business? There was an item of old business from, well, now is old business from last meeting regarding training and having some online or digital training opportunities for some new members or as we bring on new members. I'd ask staff to at least keep that on the radar. Between 21 and 22, we are after elections and remain different appointees. And it'd be good if we had some of those things available for that purpose. Even our city attorneys, trademarking, stream buffer, and other training. Number 9 is new business. Is there any new business?
No.
Item number 10.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second. I'll do it. All those in favor of adjourning, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those against, say nay. We are adjourned. Please leave your papers here for open records request.